Ass titties. Hello, trick theorists. Welcome back to Talkin' Tricks. I'm Frank.
Jason.
And we're back here talking some more trick theory this week. So,
That's right.
I think this week we're going to hit on more transitions, but specifically we're going to hit on sequential transitions. All right?
Right.
So
transitions that involve both feet touching the floor.
Yeah, so last week it was only one foot was interacting with the floor. This time we're going to have both of the feet interacting with the floor, and that's going to change a lot of the rules of like how these transitions work. Okay?
Right.
So
yeah, it also adds like another layer of complexity to like what was already pretty complex.
Yeah.
But on surface level seemed pretty easy. Right?
Exactly. And so one of the main differences with sequential transitions from single leg transitions is that it very commonly switches the landing stance. Not every time, but the landing stance is changing. And like, don't get me wrong, with single leg transitions, a lot of times, sometimes you are switching the landing stance.
Typically with carry through, but there's also carry through where you can choose not to do it, and that's just this kind of that's just kind of the thing about tricking, right? Is that creative freedom that you have, and we're going to explore a little bit more of that too in this episode.
Exactly. So one of the main things to note about sequential transitions and how it's different from the single leg transitions is that it's more dependent on how your feet hit the ground rather than literally anything else. So the way we define every sequential transition is the foot pattern. And what I mean by that, we're going to refer to it with like 1-2 patterns, and like when we say 1-2 1-2 or 1-2-2-1, we're talking about 1 is the first foot hitting the ground, 2 is the second foot hitting the ground, and then like if we say it again, like if we say a 1 after a 1, then the second 1 is the foot lifting off, right? So like let's say I'm saying 1-1-2-2.
Right. So
1, the foot hits the ground, 1, the foot takes off the ground, 2, the second foot hits the ground, and 2, the second foot takes off the ground.
Right.
And now we skip.
Right. So yeah, essentially the first instance of a number is the foot interacting with the ground, and then the second instance of it is it taking off. And it gets kind of weird to think about it, but like these number patterns help kind of like keep it organized.
But I think it's pretty natural for a lot of trickers to say that. Like whenever I feel or I see people talking about Vanish, they're like, yeah, it's like a 1-2-1-2, like that's what's happening with your feet. Like, and that's a very common rhetoric that I hear personally.
Right.
But it just helps further elaborate this shit, and like especially when we get to more complex shit, you'll see how it kind of plays in that sense.
Well, and looking at it this way, we have more options that we can like play with both feet. Like I said, it becomes more complex, but it also you can do just different types of tricks with it based on
exactly.
the order of the feet.
It's not as DOM dependent as single leg.
Right.
So single leg is almost completely determined by a DOM, and like with sequential, it's like DOM kind of is almost insignificant, and you can do whatever the fuck you want with your DOM while you're doing these sequential steps and stuff.
Right, easier to shift your DOM too. And some of them we'll like, kind of talk about later on at the end of the episode with the linear and perpendicular ones.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool revelations here. I mean, some of them are like low-key kind of pointless. And we're going to talk about the more pointless ones at the end, but they're just more like these mathematical facts that I just found really cool that like don't really serve a purpose, but like it's just fun. Like, you know what I mean? Something else is we talked last time about how complex transitions were going to be in another episode. We're actually going to put complex transition into this episode again because we kind of like talked about it, but there's another layer of complexity on top of that that we're going to put into a different episode. So what I mean by that is we're going to talk about redirect this episode, which is a complex transition, but there are other complex transitions that haven't really been named that we think might serve a purpose that we are going to bunch into a different episode.
Right.
So yeah, look out for that one. But I guess as an introduction for sequential, we can get into the first one. And what is the first one?
So our first sequential transition is Vanish, which I'm sure every tricker doesn't really need too much of an explanation about.
Yeah.
But it is obviously the most basic transition. It's mostly like walking. The foot pattern for here would be the first foot hits the floor, the second foot hits the floor, then the first foot takes off the floor, and then the second foot takes off the floor in that sequence.
And that's that 1-2-1-2 we were talking about. So that's the foot pattern. So 1-2-1-2, first foot, second foot, first foot lifts off, second foot lifts off. That's a vanish.
Yep.
And the reason why we use these numbers too is because it doesn't discriminate based off of leg landing.
Right. So like, you could land left first, or you could land right first. Yeah. And
it's still 1-2-1-2.
Yeah, that pattern is still the same as opposed. Yeah, like you were saying, as opposed to saying like left right versus like right left. That would literally double all the transitions, if not more than that.
Yeah, exactly. A 2-1-2-1 doesn't exist because that doesn't even make sense.
Right. It would just be 1-2-1-2.
Just exactly. So Vanish is, I mean,
right. Everyone knows Vanish. B-twist, Vanish 9. A lesser known one, or one that is a Vanish that most people don't think about, is like hyper landings to like aerial or something. That's also a Vanish, or hyper landings to B-twist. That's right leg, then left leg, and then the right leg kicks up into the B-twist or aerial. Yeah. And then
the right-left variant is very neglected in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's typically the case with a lot of transitions, like carry through. Is typically done off just the right leg, but the left leg variation of carry through is totally valid.
Genuine.
Yeah, it exists, and it's just not done as often. Yeah, but it could be used to swing into A twist, and we see that most often in Rasmus Ott samplers, but that's no reason that it can't be done by anyone else, right?
Rasmus Ott, what a fucking killer.
Yeah, that guy was ahead of the game.
He really was.
Yeah. There's really not a whole lot to say about Vanish, except there is a unique point that I want to make about Vanish, and that's that you will your feet have to be, both feet have to be on the floor at the same time at any given point.
And that'll be highlighted more with the next one
I described. Yep.
Yeah, the next one you describe. Yeah.
But it is just like you said, like it's a weird thing, and we'll actually kind of see that most people don't really do Vanish. Like they think they do Vanish, but in actuality, it's
something else.
It's other thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that other thing, but it is just like it's what it is.
And one more thing I want to hit on with Vanish, and I think we've hit on this in like prior episodes, is the fact that Vanish does not equal cheat. Does not equal like these other things. Is like Vanish is a transition into a trick. So you can Vanish cheat 9, but like it's not a Vanish 9. It's the trick is cheat 9, and then Vanish is its own thing. And we'll also get into like what even is a cheat 9 at the end of this episode too.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about and it all boils down to sequential transitions, like inherent property of changing your landing stance, and like you just described earlier, sequential transitions naturally change landing stances because they involve the second foot, right? And like we've already discussed, like if you land one landing position on one foot, it's one transition, or it's one landing stance, but if you did it on the other foot, it's a completely different one. Yeah. And like so you can see the transitions basically are just one way to get from one landing stance to another for a desired takeoff.
They're very commonly a way to get from one landing stance to another, which is really cool. Like, that's something I'd never thought of before we started trick theorying this shit. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really cool to see that play out like that. Right. So, but what are some weird-ass, like, transitions that you could do with Vanish? Because Vanish, I mean, like, you described as walking, and I've had triggers come up to me and like, Vanish isn't even a transition, it's just like walking, right? It just happens, but it's a very real thing, and like you even describe it as walking, but like it's a very unique thing, and you can do different things out of it. So what are some weird like transitions that you could use? So
one of your favorite up and coming ones is like left landing and vanishing into stuff like GMS.
Oh yes,
so I particularly really like the combo Rise Vanish GMS. So you land on your left leg, then your right leg, and then you will kick your left leg up for the GMS. And you know what's interesting here, how we talked about landing stances. You land the Rise incomplete, and then you switch to the right leg, and then it becomes hyper. Yeah, and then you GMS. Yeah, and like so that's just an example of how you could break these. These things down, like these transitions.
And it's interesting because you land that hyper and short hyper or absolute hyper. In my opinion, because of how that foot comes down, is like you can kind of switch the position of where that foot is.
Right. And that, exactly. I agree. It could be either or. And if you do choose to go all the way for that absolute hyper, then the GMS goes with your dom.
Yeah.
But if not, it becomes like perpendicular to your dom, and it's kind of like it shifts.
And they're both legitimate Vanish GMSs.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So
the fact that the dom shift doesn't discredit the combo whatsoever. It's just a fact of the combo.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. So, and like another one that like I know that we've fucked around with in the Mogul Slayers together is like 540 Vanish Cork, and that's something that like I feel like a lot of people don't think about, but like think about doing a 540, laying your right leg, you touch that left leg down before that right leg takes off, and then you swing into a cork.
Yeah.
Right? That's 540 Vanish Cork. And like in my opinion, that's one of the coolest fucking setups ever.
Yeah.
Like our friend Alex does it all the time. I think it looks so cool.
Yep.
And like you can even do it into gainer, you can do it into any like quote unquote swing trick. You know what I mean?
And that could be its own swing chain combo, or you can I mean the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, yeah.
Really.
And of course you could China and Vanish.
Right. And to break down that though, like let's talk about your options with 540 to gainer, right? So you land in hyper, and then you would step left into either short or absolute mega, and you typically go against your dom, right?
Yeah, you do, because your dom's going forward, but then you're like, nah, bitch. And then
Right,
you
you're
get backwards.
You're gonna go backwards, yeah. It's just an interesting, but like if you over rotated your 540 to semi, did that to like short complete or complete, absolute complete, right? Then you could go with your dom too.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
That's super shit.
Yeah.
Nice. Alright, well. Alright, so the next one that we're going to talk about is reversal, which the foot pattern for this one will be 1, 2, 2, 1. Okay? Right. So that means your first foot hits down, your second foot touches down, but then it quickly lifts off again, and then the first foot once again lifts off. So I guess the most common type of reversal that you'll see, at least in my opinion, is like a B-twist reversal B-twist. So you did a B-twist, you land in complete, but then you touch that right foot down, and then you lift it up again, and then you go into another B-twist.
Right.
And so in that sense, it kind of feels like a misleg, but you're touching that foot down, and that's really in essence what it is. You know what I mean? Is like it's a reversal, or sorry, a misleg, but you're touching that foot down.
Right.
But at the same time, reversal can be with or against your dom. It doesn't have that stipulation that misleg does that it always has to be against your dom.
Right.
It can go with your dom, and I've seen people do this. And like, I would feel like a very common one would be like doing a tornado kick that's super like over rotated, touching that foot down, and then going with your dom. But an even weirder one that I think people don't really think about, that is a genuine thing that people might not do because it looks dumb as shit, is you can actually cork reversal cork, right? Yeah. So you can cork, landing complete, touch left, right, and then you're like, nah, bitch, I'm gonna reversal cork, and then jump that right up, leg up. So it's like almost like you're skidding your cork.
Yeah. Well, that is. I think there's like a purposeful reversal cork, but then there's also the accidental. I know we've all have like skid on swings. Yeah. That's technically reversal.
It's technically an accidental reversal. Yeah.
And another thing, like you highlighted, the reversal isn't dependent on dom. Hyper is the same way, and like hyper. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, not hyper. I meant to say Vanish.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was thinking of the perpendicular landing stances.
Oh yeah.
But and that's what we'll get to at the end of the episode is how it truly changes when it starts to go backwards. Yeah. Because Vanish doesn't just go forward.
Yeah, it can go backwards.
Right. So stay tuned.
Exactly. Like I said, all of these sequential transitions don't depend on dom, so you can go with or against your dom with all of them. Yeah. So really, the only thing that determines them is the foot pattern: 1, 2, 2, 1.
Right.
2,
and
2,
and
1,
looking at it this way too opens a lot of doors for creativity, as we found with the compound complex transitions.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess, for example, when I was talking about the examples for reversal, I talked about the cork going with your dom. So what would a reversal cork going against your dom look like? And to me, that would be like landing in mega. So let's just say I did a scissor. Like I did gainer scissor, landed left, right. I touched that right foot down, but then I quickly lift that right foot up again, and then I go into cork. That would be almost like a true reversal cork to me. Like I'm using true in a very in
a weird way, but reversal in the fact that it not only reverses the foot pattern but reverses your dom.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what one of the origins of the term reversal is the reversal, because it typically does reverse your momentum. If you're going with your momentum, it's kind of dumb to put your foot down.
Well, and I think it was one of my other old head beliefs when we approached it. It was it was like reversal has to change your dom, and you were telling me like no, reversal can be either or, but misleg definitely does, and it was because of my old head understanding of misleg and reversal being the same thing.
Yeah,
but without the foot placement.
It's just the fact that single leg and sequential have to use different rules because of how they function. Like, you know,
right.
It's like I can't just say that the single leg transitions are just 1-1, because then every single leg transition would be the same. So, like, we have to differentiate in that sense. But then when you get to sequential and unified, you can differentiate it with the foot pattern. And that's typically how we do when we're in the trigging community. Like, we're saying, like, okay, this is how your feet touched. Yeah. And this is how we're going to say it's, whether it's redirect or reversal or, you know, vanish.
Whatever else.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think it's, and we kind of drop the whole dom thing when we don't need it, and it's for our benefit too, because then that would literally double like all the transitions.
Yeah, we would have to come up with a reversal that goes with your dom and against your dom.
Yeah.
A vanish that goes with your dom or against your dom. You know, all that shit.
It makes more sense in the context of single leg not having, you know, the foot pattern that would identify.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly. So I guess just to name off more weird examples of reversal, we can do a hyper, so landing an absolute hyper and doing a reversal GMS, for example. So like, and this is one of those stupid like goes with your dom kind of stuff that's like, it seems a little pointless, but left, pick up, and then you go to
swing,
the GMS.
Swing before your right leg and jump off the right leg for GMS.
Yeah, but a cooler one in my opinion is you could do it with croc. So you can actually, like, let's say you did a cork, and then you land in hyper, like short hyper, for example, and then you land with your left leg, so right, left, then you pick up your left leg again, and then you go into croc. Right. I think that's a really cool way of doing that, and that's...
essentially the boneless version of cork.
Yeah.
It's boneless croc, but
yeah,
we're going to talk about...
Well, I hate the word boneless, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a way to do croc, and that's actually one way that I've seen Jordan Alexander do it. He's and we're gonna mention Jordan Alexander probably a lot because he just does weird ass shit and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But on Tramp, he actually does multiple reversal crocs, which is stupid because how do you vanish on Tramp? And on top of that, how do you croc? Because like very few people croc. And so this was one of the cool things that I saw. Well, I'll link his video in the description.
Sure.
Just so you guys can kind of make sense of it, but he does a lot of weird shit in it.
Yeah, you may have to watch it in slow-mo.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I guess talking about reversal, you might come to the question of, like, why does reversal even exist when misleg can exist? Because, like, really, reversal is just an quote-unquote easier version of misleg.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of inclined to agree with that, except for the fact that there's also some stylistic stuff involved.
Yeah.
With reversal.
I think, well, like, and you were kind of saying, why would you, in your, like, absolute hyper to GMS, or to reversal GMS example, I was thinking about it, and I was playing in my head, and I was like, that's actually kind of cool. Like, I was like, that would be kind of fresh. And that's really what it comes down to is, like, stylistic preferences, is doing something unique, doing something different that hasn't been done. And, like, and this doesn't just hit on like reversal, this hits on everything. I mean, what makes reversal different from vanish when we look at it objectively? Like nothing.
Right.
Like why do vanish when you could reversal? Essentially, you know, there's like an alternative universe where that's the case, right? So
you're not wrong,
right?
Actually, yeah.
And like, you know, vanish is just, it happens to be easier, I guess, or more useful or more universal.
I think I got lucky.
Right,
I think it just became convention.
Yeah, and not just vanish, redirect too. But
and we'll hit on that. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, you know, it's, you know, just a pattern.
Yeah.
You know? And it's how you want to do your tricks.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing wrong with these stylistic differences, even if it's like, oh, there's a harder version of doing this, but it's like, I like this way of doing it. I don't care if there's a quote-unquote harder.
I objectively see it as like the same, even though I have my own personal preferences based on like, obviously like community influence, like we talked about with Jeremy a few weeks back and stuff like that. But, you know, even still like on an objective level, like misleg and reversal should be the same thing. Right? Like, require the same level of skill. And I think
I'd argue misleg requires more skill.
Maybe. Yeah. And, you know, that's definitely up for, like, debate. But what I'm trying to get at is, like, you could apply this, like, the single twisting tricks, like, cork and croc are technically, like, the same level of difficulty because it's all single twist, one flip. It's just a matter of, like, you know,
Yeah.
Have you haven't trained Croc as much as you trained Cork.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, but if you knew how easy it was to Croc, right?
Very few people do reversal cork, and I think a true reversal cork looks really cool.
Right.
Like a mega into a reversal cork, like I think that'd be really cool. Into a Vanish something, I don't know, like you know what I mean. So
we did kind of swerve off from our main topic here, so I'll get us back to our next sequential transition, and that's skip. Mm-hmm. And skip is basically a Vanish, but it actually has its own unique pattern too.
It's like a broken up Vanish.
Yeah, it's like a broken up Vanish is the best way to describe it, I think. And the foot pattern for skip is 1-1-2-2. So basically, where you would Vanish, instead of like both feet touching the floor, you'll just jump to the second foot.
Right.
A way to think of this: imagine your B twist. You land just on your left leg, but then you jump off your left leg to your right leg, and then jump off your right leg for a 9. And this is kind of like, it literally looks kind of like teeter-tottery. Yeah, and it will, right? And it's very similar to Vanish. Mm-hmm. And it's...
The main difference is that there's a foot off the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
In Vanish, it's on the floor while the other foot touches.
Literally that. Yeah. And that makes skip kind of easy to approach in my personal, like, experience. Mm-hmm. But it also stylistically looks different than Vanish too. You can exaggerate your skip. Skip is really cool because it's similar to carry through as well. Yeah. Where because it has that in air rotation, like a foot's not stuck on the ground, you're not so much limited to like what landing stances are available to you. Mm-hmm. You can skip, like if you were incomplete, you could skip to hyper and do a wrap 9, like you said. Yeah. Or you could actually skip to semi and do like a front swing rise 9 type. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
So there's this extra layer where it's like with Vanish and reversal, you kind of have to stay where that foot was.
Like the next immediate one.
Yeah. But with skip, you have some in-air rotation to work with. Yeah. And that's the weird part, is that you have that in-air time.
Well, and that also makes skip super interesting because of the in the same way that carry through is interesting because of the fact that you could either carry through to the same spot or to like, you know, the 180 inverse, you know, on the graph of landing stances, whatever. We have to find a way to describe that.
Yeah. No,
but essentially, like, because you can do that or not do it, right? You can do the same thing with skip. Yeah. You can either skip to your next immediate landing stance, or you can skip to that one's like mirror on the other side of the...
Yeah. So like, let's think of the example of like aerial to aerial. So you can aerial, skip aerial. So I land right on my first aerial, and hyper. Then I jump off that right leg, I jump onto my left leg, and then mega. I hop off of that into mega. Yeah. But there are rotations that can happen within that, and like, what are the limits of that? Like, can I just rotate fucking 3 times in the air?
Right. Well, like, I think we kind of hit it on with carry through, right? Because we ran into the same issue with carry through. If we restrict it to that, if we restrict it to less than 360 degrees, and like because carry through changes feet, like you actually have less room. Yeah. Than the other way, because like if you carry through to absolute complete, you could carry through to, I mean, if you landed in absolute complete, I'm sorry, you could carry through to short complete. But, like, you know, because that's not, right, that's 270 max.
Well, you can carry through to absolute semi, because you have to switch feet.
Well, with skip.
Okay,
with skip, you could.
You're talking about carry through,
yeah. For carry through specifically,
you're right.
Right, you have that full 720. Yeah. But with skip at 270, you know, sorry. So, yeah. I hate.
No, you're right.
I think I'm like part dyslexic. I don't know, but I don't know.
Stay tuned. We'll figure out Jason's dyslexic.
No, like actually though, like quick personal anecdote. Like I don't know. Like it's getting pretty bad lately. So, but like you have that full 270, but like with from like complete to absolute semi, right? Is what is that about 270? Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. Maybe not. So I guess it's about the same, but you have to switch feet, and so like you're limited to that. Like, you know,
you can't get back to the same stance you were at.
Yeah,
is you really have to get, what it's all about.
Yeah, you can only get to the stance that's below your current stance.
Well, let's say you're landing incomplete for the first one. You can only really go to hyper or semi if you're doing a skip.
Yes.
Those are your only 2 choices because of that leg switch, and vice versa. If you're landing in hyper, you only have
mega or complete.
Exactly, to work with.
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing to really note about that. So I mean, we've hit on like, so you can aerial to aerial.
Yeah. Well, another thing that we kind of mentioned on Vanish is that most people actually skip.
Mm.
And it's and this is kind of a bust out the protractors and microscopes
Yeah.
kind of moment, but it's where you like you'll see like typically people when they vanish don't always have both feet on the floor at the same time.
Yeah.
They'll, like if they do it fast enough, they'll typically do a skip.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually kind of cool.
Mm.
It's just something that like I've noticed
It's
myself.
a different transition. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a different transition.
Yeah, no, and I agree. It's like, it does get to the point where you're busting out the protractors.
Yeah.
You're not sure, was that Vanish, was that skip,
Right.
whatever. Like, it's like really close to call, and like you have to slow mode at that point. So it's like, I don't know, whatever. In my opinion, I just whatever
Right.
they say it is. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? As long as they're informed about skip. Because skip is definitely a whole ass world to explore.
It's
that I feel like
bigger than Vanish.
yeah, very few people think about skip, and I think skip is a very useful like transition. Like I think I was talking about 540 Vanish cork earlier, but more commonly, I feel like people would do 540 skip cork.
Yeah.
Like you land your 540, you jump
to
off
that
your
left
right
leg
leg.
to swing.
Exactly, you jump onto your left leg, and then you do your cork. Like that's such a cool transition, in my opinion.
Well, and
You know what I mean?
honestly, because like when we started theorizing and we first started talking about skip has quickly become like one of my favorite transitions.
Oh yeah,
Like 100%. I love it.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I agree. And actually, a really common one that I totally forgot about was doing any complete landing. So like, so you did scoot, you did cork, you did whatever, and then you skip into a rise.
Mm-hmm.
So you're skipping from like absolute complete into short semi, and then you swing into a rise.
Yeah.
That's a very common one, actually, that people don't think of as skip.
That's
like,
true.
you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, people are like, oh, you did swing 3 and then you front swung into a rise, when in reality it's just a skip rise. So that's really cool, and that's one that shifts your dom from like going forward to going backwards.
Right.
It's cool.
I think, and then I think another cool one, like now that we're just talking about it personally, I think like something like scoot, skip, wrap, full would be awesome. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
I don't know. Just a lot of really cool options with scoot.
Even a Muggle Slayer one, you could probably Muggle Slayer. So
you easily could Muggle Slayer.
Let's say you land hyper.
No, you wanna land in semi and skip to or hyper. True.
Yeah.
And skip to abs or short complete.
That's a way to do. Hey, all you guys out there that are trying Muggle Slayer, that's a way to do it. So
skip to it from hyper or semi.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, I think that's all we want to say about skip, right?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, as much as there is to talk about skip,
that
pretty much covers it.
So, we're going to talk about our first compound transition for sequential, which is redirect. We have a lot to say about redirect, but we're going to kind of like keep it limited for this episode.
Yeah.
Just because it just warrants a whole episode on its own.
Well, and as we started talking about it, like
Yeah.
I was willing to call a lot of what we had discovered just like bundle it into redirect.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many.
Yeah,
so
they're
many.
like a unique
and there's
thing.
like actually classes to it. So like we have to. I think we have to spend a lot more time, like and we'll present it in a nice way for the viewers at home.
Yeah.
But like we definitely have a lot of unexplored ground here with the compound sequential transitions.
Yeah, but in the most simplest sense, redirect in the trick theory sense, the trick theory from Brian Skinner.
Yeah.
He defined it as 1 2 1 1 2 1. Okay, so if you can picture this, the easiest way to think about it is it's someone doing a sideswipe to a TD rise, right? So they landed the sideswipe on their right leg, they hypered it, you know what I mean? Is they landed right, left, so that's the 1 2. They pick up their right leg, 1 again, but then they put their right leg down again for the other 1.
Yeah.
And then they pick up 2 and then pick up 1.
You're right, and your foot is stuck on the floor at one of these.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar to Vanish in that.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing about redirect is the way we've split it up is it's almost like a reversal with a carry through in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of is that way.
Because if you put let's go through the number again. It's 1 2 1 1 2 1.
Really quick, I think what is hard to kind of like. You definitely have to take some time to sit at home and process this because when we start adding this extra like segment of like there's 6 steps in the compound transitions versus sequential having 4.
Yeah.
And so it becomes much more difficult to kind of like keep track of. But you also have to remember that your foot coming off the floor is considered one of these numbers.
Yeah, that's something we struggled with when we were like in person, just like discussing this.
Right.
So,
and one, it's just something that you have to kind of keep track of, and it's just a mental note. So it becomes more difficult when we talk about it, especially over.
So basically,
voice.
if you have an even number of ones and an even number of twos, you're doing something. You know what I mean? It's like you can't have an odd number because then one foot is stuck on the ground.
Right.
And that's something we've noticed. So of course we have in the 1 2 1 1 2 1, that's 4 ones and 2 twos. Okay, so that's just a way to differentiate what a legitimate transition would look like.
Right.
Versus
It could never be like, you know, 3 ones 3 twos, or you know, because it just it physically is impossible.
Yeah.
When you break it down in the sense of the concept.
Because then a foot would be left down on the floor.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like I said, the most typical version is landing right leg first, but there are plenty of examples of landing left leg first, right?
Yeah.
So you can land, let's say we do a tornado kick, and you redirect into a gainer. So what would that look like? Tornado kick, you land left, right, you pick up your left, you put your left leg down again, you pick up your right, and then you pick up your left, and you did a gainer.
Right.
And that is what a redirect gainer. And we'll have an example of that as well in the description because it's a little complicated to explain, you know, over like a
auditory medium.
That's what I'm trying to think of.
Of course. But it is. I mean, and it's so funny that how just out there talking tricks is, because that's so normal to us, and we see like all of our friends do these kind of redirects at gym on a regular basis. But this, you know, it's not something that we should discredit. It's you know, it's a very unique, you know, transition, and definitely needs to be more people doing it. Yeah,
I agree. So yeah, Mogul Slayers, I feel like we've always kind of fucked with this version of redirect.
Yeah,
and then there's other versions of redirect that we still have to talk about that I wouldn't even call them redirect.
Yeah, I don't even know if redirect is appropriate anymore.
But we'll get to that in the further episode. But basically, redirect is, for now, our only compound transition, and it's a mix of reversal and carry through. And the reason why I say that is because it starts with 1 2 and ends in 2 1, which is the same as reversal, but in the middle they have the 1 1. That's like a carry through.
Yeah.
And like I really urge you guys to write this shit down. Like, write it down. Think about it in your head. Think about the foot placement, because that's really going to make a lot of sense.
Replicate the foot placement on the floor. Like, you know, try to replicate the foot patterns, you know, and remember that, like, the first instance of a number is, like, it touching. The second of it is it leaving. So then, like, you know, there's obviously going to be one that has 2 of that happening, but it's just, like, you know, that's a step with that foot and then a step with that foot again.
Right.
Point.
Yeah, and I want to have our notes on this in the description, because I feel like that's going to help people.
Yeah, we'll put,
you know what I mean?
We'll put a
like,
link to a visual representation or something.
Like, what is a vanish? 1 2 1 2. What is a reversal? 1 2 2 2 1. And like, you can really work through all these things, because it's really hard through an auditory medium. I mean, me and Jason were in person talking about this shit, and we were struggling. So I really urge you guys to go through all of this.
Yeah, and you know? Well, it'll help that we provide a list of like what these all look like, so we have like actual examples. It also will help justify what we're talking about.
Yeah,
because we sound kind of crazy.
Yeah, especially talking about the unique transitions beyond this. Like, trust me, we're gonna hit on it, but there's different ways that, like,
there are more than one redirect.
It may or may not work in theory, but we want to bring it up to you every mathematical combination of 6 numbers that is even for each one, so that you have every choice.
Yep.
So you can fuck around with it. And most of them are going to look like shit. I agree with you. I think most of them are going to be really shit looking. But there are a few that me and Jason have messed around with that are like, oh,
this could work.
Yeah, that kind of looks dope.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, even at the ones that look like shit, I think their existence is justified by the mere fact of their existence, and that, like, I mean, we talked about it earlier, reversal.
Yeah.
I mean, why reversal when you could do X, Y, or Z?
Yeah.
Well, why do anything? Why trick? Why? I mean,
why do any of this shit?
That's what it really comes down to. It's just style. It's preference. It's what you want to do, and this is a way to describe what people could do.
Yeah.
more so than what you need to do X, Y, Z.
And even beyond that, like, why trick theory, I just love talking about this shit. Like, even if it's completely 100% pointless, it's cool to come to these revelations about things.
Yeah, about a sport that we love.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, maybe it doesn't serve a use, but it's like, it's just cool.
Right, it really is.
So, I guess our last note on sequential transitions is that, like, a lot of the time, sequential transitions will be used to justify the existence of a separate trick, and this is where we're going to get a little controversial. So, like, for example, we have boneless, right? Boneless is what Towels calls a Vanish cork, which, in me, I would just call that a Vanish cork.
Right.
You just did a cart Vanish cork, you did a 540 Vanish cork, you did whatever Vanish cork. Like, I don't really care.
Right. Or skip, even, whatever, even if it was.
Yeah, I guess you can call it Vanish if you want, or you can call it boneless if you want, but, like, I'm just going to say it's Vanish.
I mean, yeah. And this actually cursedly extends to tactful, everyone's favorite backward twisting Vanish trick.
Listen, okay, here's how I want to start this out. Is there are only two tricks in tricking that are 100% defined by the sequential run up to a single leg trick. And what I mean by that is that tack is really just a sequential way to get to a wrap full. And in the same way, cheat, which is the other one that I was talking about, is a sequential way to get to wrap kicks.
Right.
And so, really, in essence, they kind of don't exist.
Yeah.
In a way. And
right.
Like,
well, and like we said, we broke it down with B twist, right? We land in short complete, and we vanish to hyper. To hyper what? Whether or not we actually truly swing the leg for a wrap, or we rapid, we've still, like, we're doing vanish to, like, a 9. And it's not, it's not, like, a... I don't even know, right? It's like
it's not just, a separate trick,
Yeah, it's not.
It's a way special. To do a rapid 9 or
a rap 9 or even croc 9 if you don't go to absolute hyper.
You
say in short hyper, you could instead croc 9, which would be fresh.
Exactly. So, and like, I guess what we're trying to say here is like I said, this is very controversial. We're not trying to say, like, don't stop calling stuff tack 9 and stop calling stuff cheat 9. I think it's still useful to say these things, but in the most trick theory sense of the word, they kind of don't exist because they can be formatted in the sense of this is a vanish.
Right, with pre-existing terminology.
Yeah.
Right, it's redundant terminology.
Yeah.
Same with the fake landing stances. It can be described with pre-existing. Like, we don't have to create new things for this. Imagine if we created, new things for, like, for example, like, we're okay with swing through rise, but, like, when we vanish rise, it's still rise, right?
Yeah, we don't call it a different trick.
No, exactly.
And so we gotta keep it consistent for everything else.
Yeah.
So why is it that when we vanish a cork versus vanishing a rise, it's a different trick all of a sudden?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly it, right? Now you have to do that for every single leg trick, which we've kind of enumerated to be about 8.
Exactly.
So what that becomes, and then why stop it? Why stop at vanish? Right? Why not do every sequential setup into a trick is its own?
Yeah, let's do redirect. Let's do skip. What is a skip chord called?
Yeah, and it just gets overwhelming when it could just be simply reduced. When you break it down, as we have, it becomes clear that this is just, a vanish is just a complete to hyper, or rapid 9, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're saying is that, like, in the most strict theory sense, when you're doing a tack full, what you're really doing is a vanish or any sequential movement into a wrap full, because I think you could technically reverse
or rapid fold even.
Yeah, I think you could technically reversal into a wrap full, and that would, people might call that tack. I don't really know. That's up to the tricking community, but that's why it's so messy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like like I said, I'm not trying to get rid of tackful. I'm not trying to get cheat kicks because they're so ingrained into the tricking culture.
Right. And we're not trying to change terminology. We're just trying to help make sense of our current terminology.
Yeah. And I'm still gonna call those things tackful and cheat 9. But beyond that, I'm not going to name anything else a different thing. I'm not going to say Vanish B-Twist is different from regular B-Twist, because that's just stupid. They're both B-Twist.
Yeah.
So, let's keep calling things tack. Let's keep calling things cheat.
9. Yeah.
I don't care.
Well, and I actually think that cheat itself can be defined as a cheat, like, cheat 9 exists in terms of like cheat being a setup, where a cheat is essentially a step into like a sequential takeoff for that trick that you're doing. The cheat setup into. Well, yeah, it's like an extra step into it.
Yeah,
it's like a step into like, because you don't just vanish into 9 from standing, right? You step into it and then you do the vanish.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like a setup into a transition to that trick. So
right.
not the like cheat is just a way to describe that vanish or that rapid or that croc setup, whatever it is, like, because cheat could be more than just, the straight up 9. It could be rapid or it could be rapid.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cheat kicks, honestly, I think there's going to be a separate episode because there's so much
there is
to
a
talk
lot.
about.
There's a lot to talk about.
TKT and like all that shit. So it's like, it's crazy. So I guess my last note I want to bring up is like kind of how they're different. You remember the mathematical thing we were talking about, where it's like it's kind of pointless, but it's kind of cool how with the linear ways that sequential transitions are defined. For left-right, it goes forward, right? So when I say linear, I mean in line with your dom, and when I say perpendicular, I mean
side
perpendicular to your dom.
So tricks like wrap, tricks like GMS, tricks like Lotus, trick like Muggle Slayer technically are supposed to go to the side.
Yeah, but just doing sequential transitions to that. So let's say the most basic kind of sequential. We're landing complete, and we go into short hyper. So absolute complete to short hyper, you are going forward and you're twisting technically because you're going from complete to hyper. And in the same way, you're going to do the same thing with mega to semi. So if you're still linear with it, it's mega to semi,
left and
right,
right,
and that's still going forward with your momentum. But if you go perpendicular with left right, so let's say you're landing short complete, and then you go to absolute semi, you're technically going backwards.
Yeah, you're twisting backward.
Yeah, you're going from one landing stance to the prior landing stance instead of forward. Because if you're going forward, you go to absolute complete instead of short semi. And so similarly with the other side, you'd go from short mega to absolute hyper.
Yep.
And the interesting thing is that it's flipped with the right left. Yep. Right? So we have linear right left. So let's say you're landing short hyper, you go into absolute complete.
Right,
so
you've gone down rotation technically.
You have gone down rotation technically. And similarly with the other linear side, which is absolute semi, you can go into
short semi to absolute mega.
Short semi into absolute mega. You've gone down rotations. But with the perpendicular ones, it's the opposite.
Then
case.
you gain traction, you gain rotation.
Exactly. So think about your typical, like, you're doing
hyper to mega.
A hyper to a B twist or whatever.
Yep.
So hyper to B twist, you're doing absolute hyper, but then you do short mega, you're moving forward. And then similarly with the other side, you're doing a short absolute semi into short complete.
And then to Vanish Muggle Slayer.
Yeah. Vanish Muggle Slayer. Yeah. Exactly. That is the way to Vanish Muggle Slayer, is by doing absolute semi.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Or absolute ultra, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever. Yeah. That's true. Whatever.
I don't really think this is a useful concept. I just think it's interesting.
No, it is. And this kind of stuff happens all the time. It's like we'll map out the landing stances, and whatever happens on one section of the landing stance, on the 180 degree opposite of it happens the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And
it's cool how much it mirrors. Like, everything that we've come up with trick theory so far has had like these perfect mirrors happening to it, and it just works really well. And I think that further justifies our theory, and you guys can double check it. Like, this isn't like we're just praying the gospel. Like, you guys can double check all of this shit.
Yeah, we're not just like, these are observations that we've just seen by breaking out tricks the way we have. And I've said that in the past, and I stick to it, because we just look at tricks objectively and not like, oh, well, this is this, so it's not possible to do that. Right? Where we just, I think that the way we've approached it has broken it down to a way where we can identify a lot of really unique possibilities within tricking.
I agree. And if you have any of these like contradictions within it, I really want to explore that, because what I really want to do with this framework is get rid of any contradictions.
Yeah.
Contradictions is like, fuck that shit.
No, well, we personally, like, coming up with this theory, have made like we've made concessions to each other. We've rethought about how we thought about tricking. I'm sorry, that's kind of dumb to say, but like essentially, we both have like give and take to make this work, and I want to do that with the tricking community too.
Yeah,
I want everyone to be able to contribute and see like the value in what we're trying to say, and give their own thoughts on it, and see like, oh well, actually this doesn't work because of this. Like I invite that. I want to know. I want to see where I'm wrong, and
I agree. I like to have this conversation.
Right, it'll help because like that will likely open up a door to something new, and that's what Talking Tricks is all about.
Exactly.
Is opening up
opportunity. It's like fucking science, dude. It's like whenever in physics they like figure out something that's wrong with quantum mechanics, they're like, shit, we gotta rehaul the whole thing. And like honestly, talking about tricks is fucking fantastic. Like even today we were really like talking a lot about compound transitions before we talked about this. And it was really cool to figure out more stuff about compound transitions that I didn't even know before.
Right.
And so, like, I want to explore those further things. So tell us if we're wrong. Like, really do comment with us.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you to fuck off. But then we might consider it.
Yeah, and put it in the episode. I mean, credit where credit is due.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of the episode, you can always find us online at talkingtricks.com and wherever you can listen to podcasts.
Yep, exactly. And thank you to everyone who made this possible. Stephen French for the logo.
Alex Hunter for being the logo.
And Steven Rogers for the intro, Sweet Skunk Island. It's a pretty fucking good song.
All of them can be found in links to their appropriate stuff in the description below.
Yeah, exactly. We give their credits. So, but thank you for joining us. Today was kind of controversial. I know we told you that cheek cakes and
boneless
tactfuls don't exist.
No, those are fake.
They're fake tricks, but we're telling you the ugly truth. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were gonna realize it eventually. So we just kind of ripped that Band-Aid off now.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great day, trick theorists. Bye.